Okay, so a general election's coming up. When exactly, I don't know, but it is coming up. So I want to take this time to try and clear up some of the things about Corbyn, because there are a lot of half-truths, there are a lot of misconceptions, and there are outright lies. I've said it before, I am pissed off with how he's handled Brexit. He is a Brexiteer. There is no benefit to leaving the European Union. But that's not the main criticisms I hear of him. So I want to talk about Jeremy Corbyn the Traitor, because apparently that's what he is. Now this normally comes on two fronts. First is he's a terrorist sympathizer. I'll get into again, but I've already been into. And the second one is that he's anti-British soldiers. That one's more of an interesting one. So first off, terrorist sympathizer. Now again, I've already been through this, but when it comes to terrorist sympathizer, all he's actually said is that we need to have peace talks with our enemies. Whether it's ISIS, whether it's Taliban, whether it's IRA, especially if it's IRA. All he said is we need to open up peace dialogue, which is absolutely true. You don't have peace talks with your mates. You don't have peace talks with your allies. You have them with the people you're fighting with, so that you can resolve the conflict with the least amount of bloodshed possible. Now, he's a pacifist, so this does seem to be his standard position, but bombing enemies into the Stone Age doesn't get rid of them. That's how we got ISIS. By slaughtering innocent people and then bombing the fuck out of terrorists. All it did was give us more terrorists. All it did was spread hate. All it did was empower the evangelicals in Islam to reach out and say, look, the British hate us because we're Muslim. You're either with us or you're on your own, because God knows the British government doesn't want you. That's more or less the issue that we've put out there. That's the tactic that they use. This constant condemnation instead of trying to open up a dialogue. Now I know in some cases it just doesn't work. But for ISIS we could have avoided that. And certainly with the IRA, we need to open up a dialogue. We needed to open up a dialogue back then, and it looks like we're going to head that way again. Just killing people does not lead to peace. And it's also, I think, quite prevalent to point out that in the Conservative Party, you have politicians who have openly said that they support the IRA for murdering British soldiers. But they're never called out. But Corbyn, who wants to find a solution with the least amount of bloodshed, terrorist sympathizer. Come on, you're smarter than that. You know you're smarter than that. But now the interesting one. Against British troops. This one was a difficult one. Now, it came up yesterday. It's actually come up a few times, and a few people have brought it up. And I've not really commented on it because I've not really seen it. I've not found it. I didn't have the original interview. I didn't read the original pieces or see the original pieces. So I didn't want to comment on it. My general feeling on it was that it was taken out of context. Much like terrorist sympathizer is taken out of context. Much like most, if not all, of his policies and what we know of him is all taken out of context. So last night I went through and I tried to find as much information as I could. I found a couple of articles, couldn't find any videos. But I found a couple of articles that had snippets on him speaking on this topic. What I read, now, if I'm wrong, by all means, comment down below, leave links to the full articles, to the full story, if you can find it, the full interviews, full statements, whatever it is. Because right now I'm only working on multiple different breakdowns of what he said. But from what I gathered, the tone that was in the piece, the tone that was in what he was saying and the words he was actually using, because the words we use is quite important, not just the context. It wasn't that he would go after soldiers who shot IRA. It wasn't that. It wasn't that he would just start prosecuting everyone who had to defend themselves back then. It was essentially, no one is above the law, and if you acted unlawfully, you should be held to account. Now, I'm saying this as someone who has had loved ones, who's had family members, who had friends, and still has a few friends in the armed forces. I agree with it. You can't have people thinking they're above the law, because that's how you get to knobheads like Trump and Bojo. That's how you get to people like Jeffrey Epstein. That's how you get there, by giving them pass after pass after pass. Now, what British troops did, if they unfortunately had to take a life to defend themselves, to defend the people they serve with, to defend the people where they were stationed, well, that is a lawful action. It's regrettable, but it is a lawful action, which is not what he would go after for. And as I was reading through these pieces, Chelsea Manning kept popping up in the back of my head. Now, for everyone that doesn't know, there was a haunting video from the military that was leaked either to WikiLeaks or was uncovered by Snowden. It was definitely one of those. And they in turn passed it on to Chelsea Manning's. Now, Chelsea Manning's was, I want to say she still is, but she might have been sent back to prison for the same bloody thing. She was a journalist, and she released this footage. And this footage was of American military lying in wait. People turn up. You can argue that maybe they were terrorists. The American military gunned them down. What you can't argue is that the second group were terrorists, because the second group were first responders. The second group were civilians, and that order came through to kill them. And they did. It is a horrible, horrible bit of footage to watch, because you are watching innocent people being slaughtered by US military troops. That's the kind of thing that Corbyn would go after. And for anyone who's wondering, Chelsea Manning, when she released this, she was sent to prison. I believe she was sent to prison for 10 years. She was stripped. She was kept in solitary confinement. She was tortured because she exposed the illegal actions that were happening. That's the kind of thing that I think Jeremy Corbyn was alluding to. So let's say, for example, I'm plucking this example out of thin air. Okay, you're there. Behind you is a house full of orphans and old dears, and you've got the IRA that are running at you with a bomb and Kalashnikovs and everything else. And you're a hero because you managed to kill them all. You're not going to face any repercussions for that, because what you did was lawful. However, if you capture one, if you capture an IRA member, you tie them up, you beat them, you cut them, you piss on them, you deprive them of sleep, of water, you torture them. Well, that is unlawful. And that's something you should be prosecuted for. You can very easily make the case that killing an IRA member is a lawful act because you had to defend yourself and that's how you felt with your training. That's the only way you felt you could do it. And I would support that completely. If a soldier comes out and says, look, we had to kill them because they were either going to kill us or they were going to kill the people we're meant to be defending, support completely, 100%. But if they did capture, if they did torture, that's not okay. That's not acceptable. And again, reading through these pieces, that's the impression that I got. So it's not like he would go after every single soldier who ever served, who ever defended and protected the United Kingdom, but certainly the ones who broke the law, yes. Now again, if you've got the full thing, and I've taken the wrong tone from this, link it down below. I'll read it and I'll make another video retracting what I've just said. But that's my take from it. Now I bring this up again because a general election is going to happen pretty soon. And these are the same tropes that the right wing bring out constantly to make sure that people don't trust Jeremy Corbyn. And it's a good one for those of us who have loved ones in the military or have family members in the military. I mean, even my stepdad, a very, very proud RAF veteran, very proud of his service, very proud of what he's done for this country. Even he's gone along with this without doing the actual research himself. And I couldn't actually say anything at the time when he was bringing this up because I hadn't done the research either. But this seed of doubt that we've had from the get-go while protecting the right-wing politicians. A year and a half. Charlie Elfrich had an investigation going on for a year and a half, and after that was charged with sexual assault and indecency on 3 accounts. And yet there are still people that say, well, you know, innocent until proven guilty, isn't it? He's proven guilty. It's a year and a half investigation and then they charged him. Yeah, innocent till proven guilty, but you know what? You don't charge someone after a year and a half unless there's something to actually fucking charge them with. Boris Johnson, a pathological liar, gets away with lying brazenly, repeatedly, over and over and over again. And even recently when he said, well, the English courts, they said that I didn't lie to the Queen. It's not what they said though, is it? But he gets a free pass. The Conservative members of Parliament who rejoice in universal credits, which has been proven with over 80 independent studies to be a horrible attack on this country, and yet they support it. They all get protected. While Jeremy Corbyn, who would put these fuckers in their place, gets smeared and tarnished so much that people don't trust him because we are bombarded with media that constantly favours the right wing and constantly makes the left wing cower. We have to start questioning where our information comes from. We have to start questioning, is this actually right? Did this person say this thing? Is this person really looking after the best interests of me and the people that I live near? I've said it before, either on Elfrich videos or on Universal Credit videos, but that's a good test. If any politician says, yes, they support universal credits, fuck off. You are anti-British. Universal credits are an attack. Would you charge the wealthy? Would you force the wealthy to pay a fair share of tax instead of constantly letting them dodge in loopholes? And yes, this would mean you have to pay more in tax. No. Done. Because that money for our children in schools, for our NHS, for our police service, for our royal forces, for our fire and rescue, that has to come from somewhere. And with the wealthiest in this country constantly avoiding paying tax, it's no wonder that they get defunded. So we have to start taking accountability from where we get our information from and our own perceptions on various politicians. Simply being entertaining isn't good enough.